Okay, good morning everybody. It is Wednesday, October 27th, 2021, and we're going to get started here with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. We're going to jump up to our ultra-high time frames. Just really quick, want to mention that yesterday we did have that bullish bias, expecting a push to new all-time highs. That's exactly what we got right out of the open. We were in a little channel here. In fact, I could probably just mark it like this. So we were channeling down like this, and then right at the open, got a really strong bullish push, broke through the previous all-time high, and went ahead and pushed up, and we got all the way to 45.90. So getting close to 4,600 here. But then as you can see, as of about the lunch hour, things just sold off, and we've been in this little bit of this bearish channel here. So let's jump up to the ultra high time frames and see what they have to say this morning. I think we're in pretty much the same situation we've been for a week and a half, and it just is what it is. No way I can snap my fingers and change that. But just look real quickly here. Our quarterly excuse me, has not changed at all, so looking very strong with no signs of exhaustion. On the monthly, I didn't really spend time talking about this, but let's just look at this really quickly. Notice that we made a higher high on the candle that closed for last month, and when that started to show, when we saw the lower high on RVI, that's when we had that bearish case. Well, essentially we have the same situation where this next candle here that is going to close on Friday afternoon has pushed to a higher high, but the RVI is still pushing lower here, right? So if we continue to have a straight line, then we're going to have to wait for the next candle, because really what we're waiting for is a nice peak in the RVI here to actually compare with some type of previous peak. And right now we just have a straight line. But what I'm seeing here is if the by Friday, again, assuming we continue to push or hold up here, there is potential that the RVI, rather than closing down, let's say here at 85, might end up closing something like that. And that way we will now actually have this peak from back on the week that, or the month that closed for August, this pullback, and then this new peak here on this candle that will close again on Friday. So there's a possibility that could happen. And if that does happen, I'm going to go ahead and remove that bearish signal, because it essentially was a false signal. And that's just how it is sometimes when you're dealing with indicators, is sometimes you have a false signal. But we might have this situation where if it does close like that, then we'll have a nice clean apex in RVI to potential apex in RVI. Remember, we now have to wait for the next monthly candle to then go ahead and close, so we can actually get a confirmation that that is an actual apex. So the problem, again, when you're dealing with these high, really ultra high time frames, is it takes a long time to really get a clear answer. But that's what we're kind of looking at here. I wanted to just get it on the record that there is a possibility we could see the RVI close up like that. Then we could potentially have a higher peak in RVI to a lower peak in RVI, and a lower price to a higher price, so we would have that divergence. So we'll see if something like that ends up playing out. Regardless, we'll just go ahead and adapt to whatever conditions happen. On the weekly here, we spent plenty of time yesterday talking about this, so if you want a little bit more detail into what I think about what this pattern is right here, you can just watch yesterday's pre-market session. Essentially, we're going to have some type of bearish case until this RVI can get all the way back up here. And it's just the way it is when you're dealing with this type of indicator. So we'll have to continue to watch. Right now, if this closes like this, we do have a bearish argument. Again, we would like to see an actual peak in RVI, so we'd have to wait for this next bar to open and close, and ideally get that actual peak before we can really hang our hats on any type of bearish actual signal. This is just an indication right now. This is not an official close signal. So we'll watch that. And then on our daily here, daily looks really strong, right? So we have the two bullish situations we talked about back at the beginning and mid-October. led to this push, which again was pretty much expected. If you go all the way back to October 12th, You go to our pre-market session for that day. Don't take my word for it. You can go watch it. We talked about expecting this exact move right here. And then we got this push up, and the candle that closed yesterday, again, like I said, just when we started, we got the push to 90, right, for a new all-time high. And then the rest of the morning, or I guess going into the afternoon, and the close, we just started to sell off. So we have this very bearish looking daily candle that is officially closed. That is a very bearish looking candle. So despite there not being a clear reversal pattern on the RVI, we do have this bearish daily candle to kind of keep in mind here. Now, if the bulls are going to be strong, they will just go ahead and chug up and break the high of that candle, which is what we would want to see in the ideal bullish situation here. We don't want to rule out the fact that, yes, we can get a pullback. In fact, this most local push right here from the lows from October 12th up, I mean, a 38% retracement would bring us back just about 100 points right back into some of the previous resistance we got back mid-September and end of September there. So that could still happen, and we'd still essentially be in bullish territory. So we'll want to keep in mind there is potential for pullback. But right now, outside of that very bearish candle, there is no bearish exhaustion pattern on the RVI. So still looks strong, no signs of exhaustion. The 4-hour, and if you just watch our pre-market for about a week and a half into the past here, going back into, what was it, maybe October 20th, let's just look here. Back from about October 19th, October 20th forward, if you watch our pre-markets, essentially what we get is we look at our high time frames, they all look pretty strong, and then we get down to our 4-hour, and then everything sort of changes. What did I do here? We get down to our 4-hour, and everything starts to get pretty wishy-washy. So we've got plenty of strong bearish arguments from the highs we made yesterday. But then on the pullback going into Globex, the lows that we've made in Globex all have pretty strong bullish arguments from the 4-hour all the way down. And this is essentially what we see here on all the shorter time frames. Just kind of zooming out, we did throw this little scheme up when we made the high over here, still essentially sitting in this little trend channel right here. I don't think there's anything else relevant on the 4-hour to talk about right now. Again, really clear bullish continuation pattern off the low right here. And in fact, the current candle right now, if it closes and it still looks like this at 7 a.m. Pacific, we will have a pretty nice bullish, hidden bullish divergence there, indicating we should continue to push. But remember, the dividing line there is 45.90, or the area of contention for the bulls is right there at 45.90. We ideally need to go ahead and push through that to negate all the bearish signals we got off yesterday's high. So 4-hour bearish off yesterday's high, bullish off the pullback. So same as we've had for a while. The 60-minute, again, pretty much everything is going to agree here. And what I did is I went ahead and went back to the low of Sunday's Globex here and drew in a fib for the week. So if you look at the quote weekly fib from the low of the week to the high of the week so far, look at where we bounced. We pulled back. So for this current weekly bar, we've pulled back 50% and literally bounced to the tick. So ideally, this bullish case holding 50% with all the bullish signals we got off of the lows here, off the overnight lows, could, it's a good argument that since they held 50 and we have all the bullish signals, that we could expect the push up to test the high from yesterday. And we can go ahead and look at the 30 and the 10, although they're not really going to give us anything else this morning. 10-minute, again, bullish arguments, the overnight low, maybe even back off this pullback in the overnight session from yesterday's Globex. This was the 10-minute. I should probably start with the 30, but going to the 30, same thing. Bullish arguments from lows there's the nice bearish argument from the previous daily high. So right now we're just going to have to see kind of who wins out here. We don't have the strongest case either way, outside of the fact that if we do go to the quarterly, the monthly, the weekly, and the daily, they still look pretty strong. We are starting to get the little tiny clues here that we might start to get some exhaustion in this push on those higher time frames. They still look strong, but we are starting to see some clues, which we kind of went over as far as the weekly and the monthly. So that's where we'll leave it. It's the same scenario as we've had for a week and a half. We're going to have to see who can win out here. Now, if we look in the local area, if we could just kind of do this really quickly, the 4 hour is not going to give us a clear picture on this local area where we're at right now in price. But if we look to the 60 minute, right now, I would say the current high that we're pushing, let me just look here. Current high that we're pushing at, that just made a high around 45.71, 71 quarter. From a 60 minute perspective, we haven't gotten the potential bearish case here off the high, telling me that we could expect a continued push. Just keep in mind the RVI on the 60 minute really only has to push a few more little micro pushes there to get to just about, what was the high there on RVI? Give me one moment. So if the RVI on the 60 minute does get up to 59.6, then we would have the case where we've pushed lower in price and the RVI is essentially the same or higher here. So there's a potential that could occur, but right now, looking at the picture, there's no bearish argument. But when you look to the 30 minute, really clear bearish divergence off the current high we're making. And the 10 minute, I think, also agrees with the argument over in this area. So a little bit of bearishness at the current high that we're pushing to right now. So maybe there will be a little bit of a pullback, but when we look to the 60 minute and above, there's really no signs of exhaustion. So we could expect a continued push here this morning. So maybe a little bit of a pullback because of the 10 and the 30, maybe even the 3 minute showing some bearishness right here. But overall, you know, still looks like from the 60 minute 4 hour perspective that we could continue to push. One other thing to keep in mind here, in the overnight session, we did, you know, after the sell-off from yesterday, we did try to recover and push higher, and we came right to 50% of the previous daily price action. And then, you know, we did break it by a point, right? So 1 point, and then we got this pullback, and now here we are attempting to come back up and test that and potentially break it. So again, I wish we had a nice clear picture with the stars aligning this morning, so we knew exactly what we could expect from the market, but we just don't have it. We've got a lot of conflicting stuff as we kind of inch to these new all-time highs and then pull back and go sideways. So that's just where we're at this morning. Have a great rest of your day. To those watching on YouTube, we're now going to jump down to our shorter time frames, throw our eye levels on the chart, and start looking for some good areas of support and resistance to look for trades this morning for our members.